This one's called True Friends. I reckon me and Roy as cowboys just about all our lives we ain't felt the need for fences, so we never did take no wives. We figured we was pretty much married to life on the open range, so to have a woman round except on Saturday night really felt kind of strange. Besides, them horses of ours would kick up and fight and act real rebellious. We thought it was 'cause of the women and that they's just acting jealous. You could say me and Roy was close. We shared everything like we was brothers. If I'd need a hand with something, he'd be there. There was no others. But this here idea we had about sharing, we would stretch it to the limit. We'd share whiskey, horses, and women. I'd give him mine. He'd share the one he met. Now all this here story held true right up till the day that stagecoach pulled in, and we was about changing them horses when his face lost his usual grin. He was staring into that coach and slobbering like a cow on loco weed. He was froze right to the spot. It was the dangest thing I ever see. I yelled a time or two. I might as well have hollered at the moon. When I stepped up to take a gander with him, I thought I just might swoon. The gal inside that darkened coach was the prettiest I'd ever seen. That's when I heard the snarl of his deep growl. Old Roy was a-turning mean. She leaned on out the window. That fancy dress didn't hide a thing. She grabbed a hold on old Roy's hat, and she gave that fedora a fling. She cupped his whiskery chin in her left hand and said, "How you doing, boys?" My heart was pounding so hard it might jump out my chest, and I weren't too sure about Roy's. "You fellas think you might hitch up those horses? I'm kind of tired of riding this stage." And with those few words, we was full into motion, not wanting to rile her into a rage. While I was handing them reins up to the driver, Roy gave her cool water from the pail, and I was eyeing the two of them with bad thoughts in my head. If she knew, I might land in jail. As she pulled out and left us dumbfounded, she leaned out the window and said, "The name's Diamond Lil. I'm the new gal in town, the one that's just up ahead." We watched her disappear into the setting sun, then we turned and gave each other the eye. We hurried to finish up all of our chores, but seemed to let some things slip by. We found ourselves at the horse trough. It weren't Saturday, but we took a bath. Roy even shaved off his stubble, but I didn't say nothing to incur his wrath. It was a half a day's riding to town. We was the last way station of the line. We figured we could just about get there when she did, and that would be just fine. Of course, it takes some hard riding, but we'd have gone at her all night just to see that darling gal again and for the chance to treat her right. As we reined in over at the saloon, the rinky-tink piano cranked out a tune, and we busted right through them swinging doors and ordered whiskey. It was none too soon. She slowly descended those stairs. She kept her eyes on us. Instantly, we was aware before the night was over there'd be a fuss. Roy gave one look at her, then he gave another towards me. Then he elbowed his way on past, but he should have let me be. Me and Roy was scuffling with each other. He threw his drink. It landed on her, and that cute little petticoated thing just shriveled up and then bristled up her fur. She slapped the fire out of Roy, and then she laid one more on my cheek. Then she started cussing like a growed-up man, her voice rising till it was a shriek. Me and Roy no longer thought of sharing. We was poking at each other's noses. We could tell it was going to get nasty and weren't going to be no bed of roses. We was both blooded up a bit when he shot his hand down for his gun. Then he stopped and called me out, said the streets where he'd see me run. The once beautiful young lady had become a bawling old cow, and she was egging the two of us on and looking for dead cowboys now. I couldn't believe we were doing this after all that we'd been through. When he turned to face me and dropped his hand, I wondered what I'd gotten into. He glared at me and I at him. There was no way to turn him back. And then he got real still, and I figured it was coming. I waited for his attack. Then his gun was out, and so was mine. And as I squeezed, I waited for the blast. But the hammer fell silent. It was a misfire. I cocked to try again fast. Roy was having the same trouble as me. I could hear his hammer drop, and I waited for one, then another, but there wasn't no loud pop. We stood there and stared at each other. Years of friendship was just about over. He stopped to look at me long and hard. He was dwelling on the life of this drover. For the moment, we'd forgot about the girl. She was still screaming from the saloon porch. As we cocked that third and final time, neither one of us still carried the torch. It was just a fact. This here gal had wanted one or both of us dead. So as we stood and thought the situation over, we turned and shot her instead. Thank you.